the smoking gun that did it for me, that solidified for me that this was a failed ground invasion force or uranium extraction plan that went left. Okay, let's go.
I worked on it 20 years ago.
Is this the plan that you're seeing unfold,
Well,
what just happened?
I'm not going to go into the details. I'm just telling you, I helped script the exercise that was involved with going into Iran, into a particular target, and trying to take control of nuclear material. So, this was first cooked up back in 2006.
White man says so. I believe the white man. Come on.
When the Bush administration was seriously entertaining invading Iran and trying to do a regime change back then. And then that, as the problems mounted in Iraq, that fell to the side. But
was it part of was it part of the report that it would be a failure?
Yeah, what we call the after action. After you do that exercise, well, the lessons learned. The lesson was, don't do it. You're going to incur too many losses. That was I don't want to say that was the lesson learned, because if you learn that lesson, you don't try to do it again. All right.
Right.
And here they are, look like they're trying to do it again, which says a flat learning curve.
Is going to educate us on why this is a basic hoax. Production, psyop, falsity, story time, bedtime story, fiction, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so let's go here. This is going to make an awesome movie, though. I'll tell you that.
Kind of like starting from the beginning with this rescue operation. What was the cause of it? What are the inconsistencies? Larry Johnson is joining us to break that down. That is coming up here on the Kim Iverson Show.
Okay. Once again, don't listen to me. Listen to the white man. Now, if you're former military, hey, if it makes sense to you, then that's not my place to say I'm nothing to the military. I don't have no military, nothing. I'm a civilian, okay? But even I understand this shit makes no sense. Even I know they would never spend this much equipment and troops on the ground for one guy. That makes no sense. The reward to risk ratio, no. Let's go.
Larry Johnson, welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start at the beginning with this rescue operation, this supposed rescue operation. There's people that are really questioning it, saying that's not what this was. This was not an extraction mission of a downed pilot. This was an extraction mission of uranium that went awry. But I got to tell you, I was on vacation this last week. It was a working vacation. I was very, very busy, and I was not able to pay too much attention. So I kind of want to start from the beginning on this. And I know a lot of people watching also have the same questions. First of all, okay, so we have 2 downed pilots in Iran, or 2 downed airmen, right? One's
Correct.
a pilot, one's like a weapons operator. Is that right?
Weapons system operator is the title, but there's where the first red flag pops up.
Okay, come on.
Okay.
Normally a weapons system operator is a lieutenant or a captain. Those are, 2 of the lowest officer levels. Well, lieutenant is the lowest. That's the entry point for all people wanting to become a general eventually. And then next up is captain. The guy that was sitting in that back seat was Colonel, and I know what his name is, but I'm not going to give it out, who's the vice wing commander of the U.S. force that's based in Jordan at the Mawafaq Salti Air Base. So he was riding in the back seat. He's qualified to do that. The question is, why was he doing that? I mean, it's not like he was going to be in command of some operation that was underway. I think it was more like he knew that there was a planned upcoming raid that I believe was going to be carried out by one of the Tier 1 forces with the Joint Special Operations Command. In this case, it appears it was going to be SEAL Team 6. They were going to conduct a raid at Natanz, which is co-located with Isfahan. And when this was going to take place, it was maybe Friday night, maybe Saturday night, maybe Sunday night past. So this F-15 was out conducting bombing runs, trying to destroy targets on the ground, maybe suppress potential enemy units that could create a threat to this upcoming raid. It got shot down. Mm-hmm. The pilot was picked up pretty quickly by what's called the CSAR, the Combat Search and Rescue. The JRPC is that so the Joint Recovery Personnel group. They launched 2 Pavehawk helicopters. There was also an A-10, I think, involved, and with pararescue jumpers, PJs. These are Air Force special operators. I think within the whole scheme of the special operations world, These guys are probably the biggest badasses of them all. Better.
I agree. I will put PJ second only to the British Special Air Service. That's the British SAS. So my ranking is SAS, PJs, Delta, then SEALs. And then after SEALs, then Rangers, then Green Berets. Or you can interchange Green Berets and Rangers. But nonetheless, the top three in the world for me, British SAS, PJs, Delta. Those are the top three for me. Let's continue.
Better than SEALs, SEAL Team 6, better than Delta Force. And I'm sure the folks and the guys in those different units would try to differ. But when you look at the qualifications of the PJs, they're trained, they're not only paramedics, they can do combat medicine, which means advanced, even something like surgery. So they've got high medical skills. They've had to qualify for parachute. They've had to qualify maritime, the same kind of swim tests that the SEALs have to pass. So they pass what Delta Force has to pass. They pass what the SEALs have to pass, and they're also weapons qualified. So
yes, they will shoot you full of holes and then patch you up. Yes,
said these are some pretty formidable guys. They do remarkable stuff. They recovered that pilot. They didn't get the other the colonel. Now that's a problem. Here you got the guy who's like the vice wing commander. He's read into all of the top secret compartmented programs. Now all of a sudden we got an emergency. I don't know. What I believe is that unit, that group of Navy SEALs, a battalion of the 75th Rangers, elements of the Task Force 160th, the Special Operations Air Regiment that flies the Tier 1 units around, they were already prepped.
That would be the 160th SOAR. They're called the Night Stalkers. They're the only guys that get to fly around, that actually fly the SEALs and the Delta to their locations or to their mission sites. That is the 160th SOAR, SAOR, the Night Stalkers, the best when it comes to the pilots. Okay, let's continue.
And loaded. They had their aircraft ready to go, the two C-130Js. These are high-speed aircraft specifically designed for the special operations community. They can carry each one of those can carry two Little Birds, AH-6 helicopters. So because I believe that they were already prepackaged on those aircraft, because we were told that there were 4 AH-6s that were destroyed on the ground when this whole thing ended. So they didn't fly there because the distance to get there was really at the limit of their combat range. And so it would have been highly risky to try to have them fly there, land, when you could just put them on those planes and then you pop them off. This colonel reportedly broke his ankle on landing because, you're seated in a chair and that chair comes down, broke his ankle. And so we're asked to believe that.
I know. Don't listen to me. The white man says so. Come on.
This guy got up out of his pilot's chair, grabbed the essential gear he needed to do escape and evasion, and then walked 5 miles to the southeast, and then climbed a 7,000-foot mountain to hide in a crevice. Maybe he did that, but I broke an ankle. Sorry, I don't care how hard you are, and but if that's what this guy did, then that's going to be an amazing story. I think my own suspicion is he actually landed on top of that mountain, but they build the story out the other way.
Right,
As soon as the search for him started, the CIA and the Pentagon CENTCOM started putting out information suggesting that the crash site was 200 miles to the west, and that's understandable. You want to throw everybody off the trail. You don't want to let them know they're going there.
Right.
The reason, though, the other reason I believe that they engaged the task force that was going to carry out this raid on Natanz is they had already done a site survey of the area, and they most likely had a recon team already in place. In fact, they had sent an advanced team out to secure the area so that they knew the area, and that's why they had to go recover this pilot and then get out of there because.
Okay, he's going to make a point. To me, that solidifies that this was a failed, or this was a cover up for a failed mission, whether it was a test for a ground invasion or they try to really extract the uranium. What he says at his final point for me is like, I can't see it any other way. Once again, if you believe this was a real rescue mission and they spent all of this manpower and resources to find this one guy, if you believe that, military or not, okay, God bless you. But it makes no sense to me. But let's continue.
This actually could represented a compromise of their operational security. because they were using this airstrip and it was paved. What I don't understand, and I still don't have a good explanation for, is I'm assuming they flew there, they offloaded at least one, if not more, of the little birds, and then they flew up to where this colonel was and pulled him off the ridge, flew back down. But again, it begs the question, why did they send in so many? They reportedly sent in 100 members of the 75th Rangers. Now, it's true their mission is to secure an airfield, but were they really, were they in fact concerned that they had a hot landing zone and that they were going to get into a big gunfight? That's possible. But then we're told that these two C-130s got stuck in the sand. Now, I can understand one getting stuck.
But two.
But, the other plane coming behind, with the pilot would say, oh, they got a problem, we'll stop here on the runway. They didn't do that. They apparently drove into the sand too. So, there's something funny about that story that doesn't add up. So now you've got, between the pilots on the little birds, you got four little birds. So you got about 8 pilots. You've got 4 operators per little bird in terms of SEALs that'll sit on the side doors and be prepared to jump off. So you got 16 of them. You got 100 Rangers. Now you got all these people out there, plus this injured captain with a broken ankle.
Mm-hmm.
And then supposedly there's a massive firefight,
mm-hmm.
but they managed to, beat off the attackers, kill them.
Right.
With no casualties on our side.
No casualties.
Maybe that'd be miraculous, but always possible. So then they fly in 2 other planes to carry out, again, if there were 100. And I don't know what story they're putting out that's actually true and what's embellishment, mm-hmm. but they flew in what are called CASA 295s. These planes are attached to what's known as the 427th Special Operations Squadron. That's attached to AFSOC, Africa Special Operations Command, but based at Pope Army Airfield. So they flew in apparently 2 of those. They can take about 80 passengers per plane, and then they can also do short takeoff and landing. So apparently that's how they got out of there. And then we went back in and bombed the hell out of our own helicopters and 4 little birds. Now, the cost. Let's go over the cost of all the aircraft that was lost. We lost 1 A-10. We lost an F-15. We lost 2 C-130Js. We lost 4 AH-6 little birds, and we lost 2 MQ-9 Predator drones.
For a rescue mission? For a rescue mission. For one guy. Okay, let's continue.
That all comes in for roughly $500 million worth of aircraft in just that one day alone. Gone. So, and then as the Iranian forces got out to where these aircraft are, they started polling. They pulled the ID of a woman named Amanda Ryder, U.S. Air Force.
Pay attention.
But she also had a residence permit for Israel.
That's the first smoking gun. The second smoking gun is coming. It's coming. Let's go.
In her papers, and that was like left on the plane. She didn't take that with her. I found that odd that she wouldn't have her personal identification material with her, but apparently she was one of the pilots. I think that was part of this. So the White House gets to tell a great story, a heroic rescue. Just like we got lied to about the movie Lone Survivor. Marcus Luttrell, his heroic struggle. And the fact was, the story was complete opposite of that years later. So we'll find out what the real story was about this a couple of years from now. but right now it's being hailed as this heroic mission. And what they're covering up is the fact that this unit that did the rescue was actually diverted from its real mission. I think the real mission was to conduct a raid at Natanz. And maybe thank God this plane crashed like it did, because it prevented those SEALs from having to carry out a mission that very likely would have been suicidal.
Yeah, they would have got wiped out. Yeah, it would have been a massacre. It would have been a massacre. Yeah, let's go.
Okay, so let's say that the government's not lying to us, and let's say that it's true. The F-15 was shot down, the pilot was rescued, the colonel was injured. What would they? So rather than us speculating what we think they were doing, what does the government say they were doing there?
They don't.
Did they give us? They don't tell us. Okay.
They just got shot down, and this other group that actually normally does not do CSAR. Navy SEALs that doing combat search and rescue ain't their thing.
Nope.
And using little birds, which are basically assault aircraft. That if you see the movie Black Hawk Down with So in there, the little birds, or the 4 little birds, they sweep in on either side of this building, set down.
Let me show you what the little bird is. This is what it looks like. That's what they look like. You've seen this. You've watched enough bad 1980s movies. You've seen these helicopters be used. Blue Thunder had to face off with Malcolm McDowell and the little bird. The Black Hawk Down, the Delta guys rode in on a little bird when they did the bombing run towards the end of the movie on the top of the rooftops. Little birds. This is what these are. Okay, they can be outfitted with rockets, guns, all that good stuff. Okay, let's go. Let's continue.
Down, and the Delta Force guys jump off the skids that are, the sides of the aircraft, run in. They get 4 per bird. That's what they do. These are not designed to do rescues. In fact, the CSARB Pave Hawks, one of their capabilities is they've got a harness that can be lowered 250 feet, so you can pick somebody up off a mountain without having to land on the mountain. Just like the Coast Guard goes into the ocean with a harness and can grab somebody out and then haul them up. Same thing. And so the PJs are specially trained. This was more than just rescuing some poor colonel hiding in a crevice on a mountain.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that part does seem weird. It's like, why not fly in, drop the harness, he gets lifted up, right? I mean, that seems to be
and then get out of Dodge.
Many of us, yeah, and that seems to be what many of us would envision. But they instead sent 100 guys to look for this one. That's the story that we're being told.
Plus 2 C-130s.
Right. Okay.
I mean, it's just it's crazy.
So what we think what it really points to, and I mean, I could understand. I'm not going to fault our government for lying to us about this. They certainly lie to us about a lot of things that I will fault them for. But when it comes to military operations, I'm not going to necessarily say, okay, you guys shouldn't lie to us. I mean, they're going to lie. Oh. That's just the way it's going to be. They got to protect lives as best as they possibly can. And of course, they want to evade the enemy. There was actually a story that came out just 4 days ago. And I thought, oh, this, now that we've seen what's happened, I think this was like a decoy story that ran in the news. And it was the Times of Israel. And they said the U.S. opt to seize around uranium would take weeks and would require building a runway. And, they go in this big article about how, if we want to go in and take the uranium, it's just going to, it's got to be this long, arduous project. We've got to do.
Yeah. It's called giving notice.